Masechet Kiddushin Daf Samech Bet. We saw a machloket in the Mishnah that Rabbi Meir said, anytime you make a condition, you have to say a double condition, in the positive and the negative. But according to Rabbi Chanina ben Gamaliel, that's not required. So we challenged Rabbi Chanina with a few challenges, and we answered them. And now we're going to turn over to challenges against Rabbi Meir. So Bishlam Rabbi Hanina ben Gamaliel Hanu Dichtiv Im Lo Shachav Ishotach Im Lo Satit Tum'at Tachat Ishech Hinaki. The vow that the Kohen gives to a sotah, that he makes her, adjures her, and he says that she has to swear that no man has laid with you, and you have not gone aside to uncleanliness, being while you were under your husband. If that's true, if you did not sleep with any other man, and you do not go astray and do tum'ah while you were married to your husband, then hinaki, then you're okay, you're totally clean. That's it. It only has one side of it. Of the vow, which is good for Rabbi Chanina ben Gamliel. Rabbi Meir, he chinaki mi ba'ele. According to Rabbi Meir, we need another part of it, right? We have the if you didn't sin part, then it should continue and say, and if you did sin, then chenek, you will get chenek. That's the punishment for adultery, right? If you did sin, and you did it on purpose and so on, then you should get chenek. So how come Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbi Meir, it doesn't have both? Amar Rabbi Tanchum, chinaki ketiv. In fact, well, hinaki or chinaki, we're combining the he and the hayat, both guttural types of letters, and they look the same and they can sound the same, and so sometimes they interchange. So even though we read it hinaki, which means you are innocent, it can be read chinaki, you should get a strangulation, and so that's implicit in that word, because you could have left it off. You could have just said, right, swear that that you have not sinned, period, right? You don't have to say then you will be innocent. So that extra word works on the kiddie level, then you'll be innocent, or works on the ketiv level, and if not, if you did sin, then you deserve a strangulation. So there you go. It is in fact a double language built into that. So now we turn around. Okay, now we understand why he says that word at all, so that it can hint to a chinaki. But according to Bichanina, why do I need that word at all? Just leave it off. אם לא שכב איש hinaki, ואם שכב לא hinaki ולא חינקי, אלא איסורה בעלמא כמשמע לן. Because if I didn't have that word, I would have thought, if you didn't sleep with another man and didn't commit adultery, then you're innocent. And if you did sleep with another man, then nothing, right? You get no innocence, but you get no guilt either of choking. Rather, you just violated prohibition. In other words, you're not supposed to do that, but there's no punishment. So but that's not true. That's why I need hinaki there to hint to the ketiv hinaki, that it's not just that if you didn't sin, you're innocent, and if you are guilty, then you're just not innocent but no punishment. No, not true. If you're guilty, then there is also a punishment of choking. בשלמה רבי מאיר, הנדכתיב הוא יתחתא בו ביום השלישי וביום השביעי יתהר, ואם לא יתחתא וגומר. אלא רבי חנינא ben Gamaliel למלי, regarding getting para aduma, water sprinkled on someone, the pasuk says that it has to be sprinkled on the third day and the seventh day from the time of his purification process. Now, and if he doesn't, and the pasuk continues, if he doesn't get purified on the third day and the seventh day, then he will not be pure. We understand, according to the Rabbi Meir, now why it says both the positive and negative. You have to do a third day and seventh day, and if you don't do it, then no good. But why do we need the double language according to the Rabbi Hanina? And the answer is Isterich. Because I might have thought that maybe lechatechila, the mitzvah, the best way, the word mitzvah haza'ah means the best way to do the mitzvah is to do it twice on the third and seventh day. But bidi avad, let's see, did only one of them, I might have thought it's okay. So if it didn't have the double language, right? Because if it only had the first one, you should get sprinkled on the third and seventh day. All right, but that's lechatechila. If not, maybe one's enough. That's why I need the second clause. And if you don't do it on the third and the seventh day, then you are not pure at all. It counts as 0. Kamashmalan. Now, also in the same context of Paraduma waters, it says Viza Torah Shilishi Ubayam Shebi'i. We're just wondering now, why does it repeat later on in that chapter? And you have the pure person has to sprinkle on the Tameh person on the third and seventh day. This seems repetitive. We already know that from the previous pasuk. Lamali istarich sakadatechamina shilishi lemut hasheni shemi lemut hashishi tekamet bimetara avachad avad b'shilishi u'b'shemini tekama pish bimetara ema shapir dameh kamashmalan. I need this extra pasuk because otherwise I would have thought when it says the third day, that means you just can't do it earlier. You can't do it on the second day or first day. You have to wait at least to the third day. And when it says the seventh day, that just means you can't do it on the sixth day or fifth day, right? You have to wait at least that long, because if you do it on the second day or on the sixth day, then you're lessening the time of the process of purification. But let's say you would extend it and do it on the third day. That's normal, that's proper. And the second sprinkling you do on the eighth day, where now I'm extending the period of purification. I might say that's fine. That's why this pasuk says, no, it has to be precisely on the third and seventh day, not less and not more. And now why does it further have to say in the continuation of that pasuk that on the seventh day he shall purify him? What does this come to add? I might have thought that you only have to do the full purification process on the third and the seventh if one wants to be so pure that he can eat sacrificial meat. But maybe if it's just a kohen who needs to eat tirumah, that's a lower level of sanctity. Maybe one sprinkling would be enough. Therefore, Shibi comes to add that you need the third and seventh for any matter, even if only for tirumah, not only for eating sacrificial meat. All right, and that brings us to the next Mishnah. המקדש את האישה ואמר, כסבור הייתי שהיא כהנת, והרי היא לוויה, לוויה והרי היא כהנת, ענייה והרי היא עשירה, עשירה והרי היא ענייה, הרי זו מקודשת מפני שלא הטעתו. A man does Kiddushin with a woman, and he thought in his mind, he assumed for some reason, that she is a bat kohen. But turns out she's a Levi. Now, she never said, I'm a bat kohen. She never said on condition, I'll accept on condition. He didn't say on condition, but he just made an assumption for whatever reason. I don't know, she lives in a neighborhood of there's lots of kohen. I don't know, whatever reason, he thought it was a kohen. Or the other way around, he thought she was a Levi, but she's right a kohen. Or a different topic, if he thought that she's poor, but turns out she's rich, or he thought that she's rich and it turns out she's poor. And again, here, not because she ever said anything explicitly or made a condition. It's just that he assumed. So maybe she was wearing a lot of jewelry, and turns out it was just borrowed jewelry. I don't know, right? But so he made an assumption, and turns out his assumption was wrong. The Kiddushin is valid because she did not mislead him. There was no explicit condition said. He had an assumption, but it was not said. It was not based on anything. So the Kiddushin is valid. And again, it doesn't matter which way it is, if it's good to bad or bad to good. Some people, want someone who's a kohen. Some people prefer a Levi. Some people want someone rich. Some people say, no, I'd rather have someone that has humility and want someone poor, whatever. Okay, האומר לאישה, הרי את מקודשת לי לאחר שאתגייר, או לאחר שתתגיירי, לאחר שאשתחרר, או לאחר שתשתחררי, לאחר שימות בעלך, או לאחר שתמות אחותך, לאחר שיחלוס לי ממך, אינך מקודשת. A person gives money to a woman, and she's not Jewish. So he says, you're Mekodeshet to me. Well, no, in this case, he's not Jewish. Okay, a non-Jew comes to a Jewish woman and says, you are Mekodeshet to me after I convert. Or maybe she is not Jewish, and he says, after you convert. Now, you can't do Kiddushin between a Jew and a non-Jew, either way. So this does not work. Now, even though he's saying, later on. And similarly, if he is a Eved Kena'ani, Eved Kena'ani is still not yet Jewish. Only when it's Eved Kena'ani has to do some mitzvot, the same mitzvot that a woman has to do. It's like a halfway, but not till he's freed. Only when he's freed, then he becomes a full Jew. So here, an Eved Kanani goes to a Jewish woman and says, "Hadet mikudeshet li," with this money after I am free. Or maybe he is Jewish and she is a Shivcha Kananit, and he says, "After you will be free, and then we'll be Jewish." Or if a man says to a married woman, "Here, I am mikudeshet to you after your husband dies." Okay, not a very nice thing to do. But let's say he does. Or let's say a man was married to one woman and they divorced, and that woman has a sister, and now he's not allowed to marry the sister as long as his ex-wife is alive. But if he goes to that sister and says, "Hared mikudeshet li," not now, but it'll work after my ex-wife dies, your sister, does that work? Or a man dies without children, and the woman has zikah to the yavam, and so a different man who's not related comes and says "Hared mikudeshet li" after the yavam does chalitza. In all these cases, the kiddushin is not effective, because in each and every one of them, it's impossible for the man and this woman to do Kiddushin now. And since they are not eligible to do Kiddushin now, they also can't do it afterwards. If you notice that it goes in order of more and more difficult to accomplish. In the first case, one of the people is not Jewish at all, so they're not in the Torah of Gitin and Kiddushin. In the second one, well, that's Eved Kani, so it's already halfway towards being Jewish, so it's a little better, still can't do it. And the next cases, both parties are fully Jewish. It's just that in this case, one is the woman is married, and then in the next case they're not married, but there's a nisur arva, and in the last case it's a zikah of a yavam, which is much less severe. In fact, if they would do kiddushin now, the kiddushin could be effective in that last case. So it goes in order of greater and greater chidush. The greater chidush, because they're all not good. אשתך נקבה הרי זו מקודשת לי, אינה מקודשת. אם הייתה אשת חברו מעובדת והוא קרוא ברה, דבריו קיימים, ואם ילדה נקבה מקודשת. Someone goes to his friend, and his friend is married. And he says, if your wife should give birth to a daughter, then she's mikudeshet to me, right? At that point, the kiddushin is no good, because she's not either not pregnant, or at least not known to be pregnant. So this person does not exist. He can't do kiddushin to a person that does not yet exist, or is not yet known to exist. However, if his wife was pregnant and was recognized, right? Everybody knows, you can tell that she's pregnant, then that child does exist. Now, we don't know if it's a boy or a girl, but here you could say if it's a girl, so this person is right there, right now, not born yet, but okay, still a fetus. Talk about getting married young. So then that kiddushin works. If she does in fact give birth to a girl, then she is mikudeshet from birth. Tanan hatam Mishnah. The Gemara quotes a Mishnah in Masechet Terumot. En tormim min hatalush ala mechubar v'im taram en terumato teruma. We'll see how this is related in a second. But one is not allowed to take teruma from that which is detached from the ground for that which is attached to the ground. In fact, while something is attached to the ground, there is no obligation to take teruma from it. And therefore, it's not within the realm of an obligation for teruma. So you can't take teruma from something that is separated from the ground, which you have to take teruma from that produce on behalf of something that is attached to the ground, because even it's attached now. Later on, you're going to detach it, but then it will require its own, right? That's two different categories. And even if you did it, the teruma is no good. Oh, now we have a question. Ba'amina, Rav Asem Rabbi Yochanan, Amar perot aruga zo telushim yu teruma al perot aruga zo mechubarim. Perot aruga zo mechubarim yu teruma al perot aruga zo telushim lech sheyitalshu v'nitleshu mahu. So now we have a question. We're adding on an extra word when they become detached. So in either case, either the produce from this garden that is detached should be, I'm separating it as teruma on behalf of that which is attached. Or the other way around, this section here is attached, and I'm going to designate this as teruma to exempt that other section of produce that is detached. So here it's the other way around, that this part that detached is required to take teruma, but you're separating from things that are attached. So this is no good. Either way is no good. These are different categories, and one of them, either way, does not require, is not teruma yet, is not eligible for teruma yet, and therefore cannot be used, and you can't take from another place for it. However, what if you add on the word when it gets detached? In other words, I know it's attached now, but I want this section of attached to be teruma on behalf of the detached one when I end up cutting it, right? When I harvest it and cut it, then it will be teruma on behalf of the other pile over there. And v'nitlishu, and in fact I go and eventually, whatever, tomorrow at some point I detach it. What about that? Is that valid? Amar kol shebiado lav chemechusad maaseh dameh. Yochanan says a very important and powerful principle: anything that's in your power to do is not considered lacking in action. Since you could go, no one's stopping you. It's your produce. You can go anytime you want, and you can cut it. Therefore, we consider it as if it's already cut, and therefore the teruma is valid. It does work. See, in the first case of the Mishnah, he didn't say anything, so therefore he's saying, I want this attached teruma, this attached produce to be teruma. You can't do this attached. But if I say when I will detach it, that's fine, because it's in your power to do it any time, so it works. That's Rabbi Yochanan's principle. Now, we're going to ask about that from our Mishnah. Itive, hameli shahadat mekudeshet li lachash et gayer, lachash titgayri, lachash lachash tishtachreri, lachash yamut balech, lachash tamut achotech, lachash yachalos lich yevamich, and mekudeshet. Okay, we're quoting the whole Mishnah, and we say bishlam akulahu la biyado, ela ger have biyado. I understand the rest of the items in the list. It's not in your hands to do or not, except for conversion, right? Isn't that isn't in your power. So we're asking really about the first one here. The man says after he's not Jewish, and he says after I convert, right? Then I'm saying to you now, you are mekudeshet to me, right? And it'll take effect after I convert. So this is in his power. He can go anytime he wants, and go to a bet din and convert. Whereas the rest of them, that depends on her converting, or after I go free. Well, going free depends on the master. If he decides to let the guy go free or let her go free until someone dies, well, I guess you could murder someone, but that's not exactly a practical or legal solution. So that's not in someone's hands. After your sister dies, after that guy does chalitza, so all the rest of them are not in his hands. Since it's not in his hands, he can't do it. But the first one is in his hands. And according to Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan just said, anything that's in your hands to accomplish, it's as if it already accomplished. Therefore, if I say, you're mekudeshet to me when I convert, since I can go convert anytime, the Kiddushin should be valid. So ger nameh la biyadod amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba amar Rabbi Yochanan. No, so we answer no. In fact, converting is not totally in one's hands, because Rabbi Yochanan himself said, גר צריך שלושה. מה יתאמה משפט כתיבה כדין, מה ימד מסתקקו להנטלתה. You can't just convert by yourself. To convert, you have to go to a bet din. How do we know that? Because it says mishpat echad, there should be one law for converts and for homeborn people. So mishpat is a language of judgment, and in order to convert, you can't just decide, I declare I am Jewish. You have to go to a bet din. Who says that the bet din is going to be available? Who says that they're going to agree to it? So, in fact, even this thing is not in one's hands. It's not like cutting your own produce from your garden. That you can do any time. Nobody can stop you. But converting is not in your hands, and that's why the Kiddushin is not good. Good. Matkif la Rabbi Abba bar Memal. Ela me'ata noten peruta l'shivchato. Va'amar. Harei at mekudeshet li lacha she'esh tachrerech hachina medavu Kiddushin. A challenge to Rabbi Yochanan. What if a person, owner of a shivcha kena'anit, gives her a coin and says, you are mekudeshet to me after I free you? Now, it is in the master's right to free his slave anytime he wants. Nobody can stop him. He doesn't need a bet din. Doesn't need anything. Since he can do it anytime he wants, so it should be a kiddushin, right? Hachi hashta. However, right, this is not so. We know the law is not so. So why not? Hachi hashta hata mikara behema hashta da'at acheret. So no, that is a different case. When she is shivcha kena'anit, she has the status like an animal. Now, this is not very nice to compare people to animals, and certainly, she would be within the laws of human beings, and you can't murder her. Shovech dam ha'adam. She's not literally like an animal, but the point is that she is so completely removed from the category of being able to do kiddushin, because as a shivcha kena'anit, she is still a kena'anit, and so once she is freed, she becomes an independent mind, right? And the freeing her changes her category completely, and so therefore it's kind of like she doesn't quite exist as a Jew. She doesn't exist right now, so that's why you can't do it. It's not really in your hands. It's not like if you have some olives and right now they're attached to the ground and then I cut them. Okay, they're still olives. It was just now, before it was attached, now it's detached, right? This is a fundamental change in the very essence of the identity and definition of the person. And so, no, in that case also, there is no kiddushin. Wait a second. What about this statement of Rabbi Oshaya? A man gives a coin to his wife and says that they're currently married. He says, after I divorce you. Right, does that work? Does that then later he'll give her a divorce document, and then immediately after giving her the get, they'll already be mikudeshet. Now you might say it's in his hands to do this, right? It's in his hands to divorce her. A man can divorce a woman even against her will, according to the letter of the law. So maybe this should be good, right? Should we say that according to Rabbi Yochanan this is good because it's in his hands to do, so it's as if it's already done? And we answer, says no, it's not good, because even though you're right, it's in his full power to divorce her, it's not in his full power to do Kiddushin. For Kiddushin, a woman has to agree. And who says that she agrees? After the divorce, that she will want to get remarried. That doesn't. She may not agree, and therefore it's not totally in his hands, and therefore he cannot do it from now. All right. Now that we establish this principle, that while it is in the hands of a man to single-handedly divorce his wife, but not marry his wife, and therefore you can't do a preemptive marriage while they're married for after they get divorced. Once we know that principle, perhaps we can solve a question that was asked by Rav Oshaya. Tifshot ba'ay Rav Oshaya. Hanoten shete pirutot lisha. B'achat amar litkadeshi li hayom, b'achat amar litkadeshi li achar she'etkadesh. Similar to the previous case, but an extra complication. In this case, they are not married. Just a regular man and a regular woman, not married. And now he comes and does Kiddushin for the first time, but he gives her 2 coins. And he says, with one of them, he says, I want you to be Mikudeshet to me today. And with the other coin he gives her, he says, be Mikudeshet to me after I divorce you. So, Tifshot minad elav havu Kiddushin. So we should be able to now apply the principle we just learned to this case as well, and say that there's not Kiddushin, because it's not in his hands for her to necessarily agree, right? She may not agree to be married to him, so it's not in his hands, and therefore, while the first one will work, assuming that she agrees and accepts the first Kiddushin, the second one, it will not work, because it's not in his hands to force her, right? So can we solve that question? The answer is no, we can't solve it, because this case is different from the previous one. Perhaps in this case, because right now they're not married, and so she accepted, just like she accepted the Kiddushin now, maybe that also means that she accepted the Kiddushin later. And so they both come together, and therefore, since she already accepted it, it is automatic, and so it's in his power to divorce her and remarry her, because it was already done before, together with the first Kiddushin. So maybe in this case it's good, even though in this case, when they're already married and he does this, that would not be good, because then there's no other Kiddushin that's taking effect. Here, he's just giving it to her now, but it's not in his power to force her. He can force her to get divorced, but he can't force her to accept the Kiddushin. Since it's not in his power, it's not as if it already happened. Okay, next question. Oh, not a question, but a support for Rabbi Yochanan. Tanya kivatet Rabbi Yochanan. Enter mina talush min mechubar. Vim taram and terumato teruma. You cannot separate teruma from that which is detached for that which is attached. The part that's attached is not liable just yet. And if you did, there's no teruma here. Kesad. Amar perot arugazo telushin yu teruma al perot arugazo mechuberet. If someone said this patch of land that is detached should be teruma for that part that's attached, or perot arugazo mechuberet yu teruma al perot arugazo telushin lo amar kilum, or the other way around, this part that's attached should be teruma for that which is detached. He said nothing. Aval amar lichsheyit talshu v'nit leshu devarav kaimin. But if he added a word that this detached part, attached part should be teruma for that detached part when I detach it, right? I know it can't work now, but when I detach it, then, right, either way, either this will be teruma for that when I detach the part that is teruma, or the part that will be chulin. Either way, when it becomes detached, then it will be effective. Then that is effective, and so this is a support for Rabbi Yochanan, because that was Rabbi Yochanan's whole point to begin with. Since it's in my power to do it, therefore it's as if it's already done, even if it hasn't been done yet. Yater al ken Amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov afilu amar haperot aruga. אפילו אמר פירות ערוגה זו תלושין יהיו תרומה על פירות ערוגה זו מחוברת, פירות ערוגה זו מחוברת יהיו תרומה על פירות ערוגה זו תלושין, לכשיביאו שליש ויתלשו, ויביאו שליש ונתלשו, דבריו קיימין. And furthermore, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, even if he said that the produce of this part that is detached should be teruma for that which is attached, or this part that's attached should be for that which is detached, when they grow a third and become detached, and in the end they grow a third and they become and he detaches them, even then that statement does work. Now this is an even greater chidush, because produce that does not grow a third of its full growth, of its full ripeness, is not required, is not obligated in teruma. And so in this case, it's the produce right now, right, the part that's detached, is not even yet a third grown, so it doesn't even enter into the obligation of that. If it were detached now, it would be required to take teruma. Even in this case, that you're going to have to wait till it grows somewhat more. If you say that this is teruma for that, and one of them is attached, but you say it will be teruma when it grows a third, and I cut it down. As long as you wait till it grows a third and cut it down, even then it's a valid teruma. Okay. Amar Rabba. Lo amar Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov ela b'shachat aval ba'agam lo. Rabba limits Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's statement, and he said this is only true regarding fodder stalks that are grown, and even if they're not yet ripe, they can be used for animal fodder. So they're useful for something, and therefore they're more substantial because they're stiff and straight. But if it's agam, meaning soft things that grow and they're soft, that are just flopping around, that even Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov would not agree, because they're really not useful for anything. So even if it's less than a third, but it's fodder where it sticks straight, and so it's sticking up, and so that's useful for something, then yes. But if it's floppy, and soft, then not. Rav Yosef Amar afilu ba'agam. Rav Yosef says, I'm not going to limit Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's statement, even if it's soft growth, like soft grass. Even then, it's still, and it's not yet a third, even then, it's okay. We'll wait till it's a third, and then it can be useful and required in teruma. My mashma dehagam lishana debus lanahu, a language question. They're using the word agam to mean something that's soft in terms of the growth, how it grows. How do you know that it has to do with something about growth? Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Kerah, lachof ke'egmon rosho. This is from the Haftarah on Yom Kippur, right? What kind of fast does Hashem want? Is it to bow your head like a bulrush, right? Like a soft drooping plant, right? Does Hashem just want you to keep bowing and bowing, or does he want inner teshuvah, obviously inner teshuvah, not the outside acts. So you see here the word agam, like egmon, means a bulrush that droops and sways a lot, not something that stands up straight like shachat. Okay, so now that we know this machlok between Rabbah and Rav Yosef, we're going to apply it to the following statement. Who would be the author of the following baraita? Lo amar kelum. So this baraita is similar to our Mishnah. A man says to a friend, if your wife gives birth to a girl, then she should be mekudeshet to me. This he's not saying anything, right? Because she's not yet pregnant. Rabbi Chanina clarifies, says it's only not a Kiddushin if she's not pregnant. You can't do Kiddushin to a future child. But if she is currently pregnant, that's fine, even though still only a fetus, but is still a potential human being there. There is someone in there at some stage, and therefore it's okay. Keman, who would be the author of this? Ikeraba keshehukad ubara. Ikerav Yosef afalpi shelo hukad ubara. So, who is the author of this baraita? Well, it can be Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. It could be anyone. It could be unanimous. But if we follow Rabbah and you want to be Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, then we have to limit it to only if we notice the pregnancy. There's a parallel here. Just like according to Rabbah, a stipulation for the future only works with fodder that is straight up and strong and noticeable. So too, this type of doing Kiddushin for a kid that's not born yet is only going to be good if it's noticeable. So being 3 months pregnant, noticeable, is the same as having a stalk of fodder that's strong. But if it's soft grass, then it's not noticeable. That's the same as a pregnancy that's early and not noticeable. So. And according to that, this would only be true if it's noticeable. But if we followed Rav Yosef, who says that the grass, even if it's floppy, that's okay. You can already say this will be terumah once it grows a third, even though right now it's all just floppy on the ground and not noticeable. Well, according to that opinion, we can interpret this baraita and Rabbi Chanina's statement on it to mean that as long as she's pregnant, even if she's not noticeably pregnant, still that Kiddushin would work. That's all one version. Another version of this entire debate, in this version of us, limits Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, but here he says he's limited to a non-irrigated field. I mean, if a field that doesn't require water, the field is near a river or down a slope and it rains, and so it doesn't require artificial irrigation. In that case, it's definitely going to grow, right? If you just wait a bit, it will definitely grow into a third without doing anything. So there you could say, all right, the Kiddushin is good because we know it will grow. But if it requires irrigation by human means, then we're not sure if if you don't do anything, it won't grow. So it's not an automatic. So that since it's not automatic, we cannot say, this will be terumah when I water it and make a channel and do all that, and it grows, and I cut it down. That's too many steps. It requires too many things. It's not automatic growth. So I can consider it as if it already grew, only if it's going to be automatic growth because it doesn't need artificial irrigation. However, Rav Yosef says, I'm not going to limit Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, even if it's in a place that is an irrigated field and requires irrigation. It's okay, so I'll irrigate it. Then I'll wait till it grows and I'll cut it. And even in that case, the terumah is valid. So now, according to this version, we ask the same question. So who would be the author of the baraita that says a man says to a woman, if your wife has a girl, then she's mikudeshet to me? That is meaningless because she's not even pregnant. But Rabbi Chanina clarifies that's only if she's not pregnant. But if she's currently pregnant, then that's good. So who would we follow? So we agree. It could be anybody. The author can be Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and everybody would agree. Both Rabbah and Rav Yosef that this is only true when you notice her pregnancy, because in this version of the Baraita, even Rav Yosef agreed that it's only with fodder that's noticeable. The question was, well, okay, this fodder, does it require irrigation or not? How many steps does it need? There was machloket about that, but everybody agreed that it has to be at least somewhat noticeable in order for it to be a good terumah, and therefore the pregnancy also has to be noticeable in order for it to be a valid kiddushin. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ve'amen.